In this video, we're going to cover the top 5 sales mistakes that are very commonly made by salespeople at all levels and in all industries. The number one mistake people make is having conducted no research. If you're going into a demo with somebody, you're going to get on the phone or you're going to conduct a presentation or drive out to their office or whatever it is, make sure that you've done your basic homework, just the core fundamentals. You do not have to have, some big lengthy dossier on them. But spend 5-10 minutes on Google and make sure that you know the lay of the land. You understand their industry a little bit, their company, browse their company's website, look into who they are, and also any big pieces of relevant news or information about their business. For example, if you're going to pitch to a marina right after a hurricane in Florida that affected their area, might be a good idea to be up on how bad the damage was and if their building is still standing. Just saying, make sure that large events. It can really, really make a difference when it comes to your closing ratios at the end of the day. Mistake number 2, major mistake, often made, is bad demonstrations. And bad demonstrations encompasses many different things. Number 1 probably is lack of familiarity with pitch materials. Many times you'll go on to a demonstration. I've done this myself many times, and I bet you have too, where you can see that the person that's selling you doesn't know what they're talking about, doesn't understand what they're trying to present to you, is disorganized. If it's a demonstration on the computer, you see the desktop and it's just cluttered in junk, and they go to their web browser to show you their screen and show you something, and you see all kinds of strange URLs to other websites all popping up in there. All this kind of stuff. Many things can derail a demonstration. Make sure that, your demonstration is, prepared properly beforehand. The tablet, clean up your, the icons on your desktop, the apps that you've got there. Clean up, your computer. Make sure that you've got no files showing. Clear your browser history. Make sure you familiarize yourself with your product and your service. Make sure you understand what it is you're talking about. This is kind of a no-brainer, but it's something that people make a mistake of doing all the time, especially when they go into a sale and, within many different sales that you're going to conduct, there's going to be a lot of specific things you're going to cover, right, for a given business. If you're selling websites, for example, like we do at Rocket Driver, if you're going out to pitch somebody a new site and it's a restaurant, for example, you're going to be talking about menus and you're going to talk about restaurant-specific plugins and functionality of the software. So if that's the case, that part of the pitch, make sure that you have that down ironclad. Right? Anything that is going to come up, make sure you've really, committed it to memory and you know what you're talking about 100%. On to our next section here. Another thing that takes people down all the time are bad closing skills. All the time you see this, people who just lack fundamental core understanding of closing techniques. Another thing that takes people down all the time, lack of closing skills. People that have no fundamental core understanding of closing skills and techniques and how to apply them in the real world. People tend to either have a very strong academic understanding of closing techniques or a very strong real world understanding of closing techniques. Very seldom are they able to fuse the two together. And when they do, they're incredible, right? People who understand the theory and the application of a closing technique. There's many different techniques out there. Make sure you take the time in your spare time, go online, look up closing techniques. I am not saying to buy, some very expensive sales course or going through a closing course. Right here on YouTube, tons of different closing techniques and videos that we're doing ourselves, other people are doing. Watch them, learn closing techniques, learn how to apply them to your sales process. You can give the best demonstration imaginable, convey all kinds of factual information. If you can't get a person up to the fence and then push them over to get them to close, it was all for nothing. Closing technique is really all about getting somebody to take action here and now, right, in that moment, getting them to close. Now, different types of products have different sales processes. Understand that. Consultative selling is very different than one-call closing, is very different than romancing sales like real estate. You have to guide the person down the path that you want them to go down and use the techniques that are relevant to that given product or service and that given sort of model of sales. Make sure that you know this and make sure that, you take the time to understand what it is you're doing. Now, closely related to bad closing techniques is not asking for the sale enough. Many salespeople, and I mean, this is statistically proven and backed up, do not ask for the sale enough. They will take one no, two no's, three no's, and they're out the door. Very rarely do people go beyond three no's. Very rarely do they go to two no's. Most salespeople, statistically, and just about 100% of salespeople who don't make any money, give up after one or two no's. You have to be willing to fight for the sale, to get a whole bunch of no's, like, get 4 or 5 no's out of a person. What's the worst that can happen? If you have spent all this time, on the phone, setting up an appointment, getting through a gatekeeper, getting to a demonstration, getting through a demonstration, getting all the way to the point where you're about to close, you should, and it's in your own best interest, really make sure that you push as hard as you possibly can to make that sale happen. Now, I know rejection sucks. That's the root of why most people don't ask for the sale enough. They don't want to face rejection, flat-footed, in-their-face rejection of somebody saying no, no, no. But if you push yourself and you go through it and you face that rejection, you will drive up your closing statistics dramatically. The fifth major sales mistake that salespeople make is to not qualify their prospects. They do not bother with qualification. They go and pitch blindly anyone and everyone, and they waste enormous amounts of time in this process. Qualification needs to be clearly understood psychologically. What is qualification? People will say, well, it's just seeing if they have the money. Well, yes and no. It's not just about the money. It's about, are they a qualified buyer, right? You could have a business that has millions, but they just bought the exact service that you're selling, so they're not qualified. You can have a business that has millions, but they're moving locations and changing ownership, and the person in charge there cannot spend the money. They can't change vendors. They can't get a new website. They can't get a new freezer, whatever it is you're selling. Qualification is simply going through a set of basic probing questions about the business. And I do this on initial phone calls with prospects. I never let it advance to a demo. I get on the phone and I'm talking to somebody and I want to know, a little bit about them. I'm going to ask them, oh, hey, if, it depends on the service, of course. I'm going to ask them about if they've had a new one of these done or a new one of those done, or how's their website doing. Just ask broad, general probing questions. People like to talk. Get them to open up and talk to you. Tell you if there's any major impediment to them buying what you're selling. When it comes to financially, qualifying prospects, broadly speaking, since I deal mostly in B2B sales, when it comes to B2C sales, it's a different story. You have different qualifiers there, but in B2B sales, most all my prospects in the realm and strata that I'm selling in are qualified. If your prospects are not financially qualified, you really need to step back and look at where you're getting your leads from and what kind of marketing venues you're getting your leads out of. Because if you get your marketing venues right, in other words, if you are generating leads in a way that gets you people who are either shopping or gets you people that are roughly qualified, the financial side should be the last consideration, the last worry, right? At least it is in my experience, right? If you're selling something really expensive, Learjets or something like that, of course, qualification is everything. But if you're selling most standard business services, financial side is the least of the considerations of qualification, especially if you have a good lead venue. Unless you're scraping the gutter, so to speak, to find your leads, you're going to be okay in that respect. When it comes to B2C qualification, well, there's a lot more to it. You have situations where if you're selling something that is a trade emblement or, something attached to a person's home, and you can't really sell to a renter because maybe the renter isn't allowed to modify the property, or, the renter simply won't buy because it's not their property. There's all different things that come into play there for qualification, but whatever your checklist is, don't waste your time not in qualifying. Pitching leads just for the fun of it, waste of time, can eat huge amounts of your time, and it's a gigantic mistake made by way too many salespeople. Anyhow, that's going to wrap this up. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment below. Love to hear from you.